Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are the latest games to the Pokemon franchise. These are the first open world Pokemon games we ever got. And because of how big and vast the Paldea region is, you probably have gotten lost or went somewhere where your team was very underleveled. But today I present the best way to play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and my experience with it. But before we get into that, let me know what your favorite Pokemon experience is in the game. Mine is definitely choosing my starter, and also don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Let's see if we can hit 9 likes for Generation 9. And now let's jump right in. I make my character, choose my starter, and do all the other things I have to do before I can finally step out into the Paldea region. First I head west towards the Cortanto Gym. On the way I catch a Tarantula, Palmy, Paldean Wooper, Tinkaton, and a little Salt Boy. We do some cheating on the gym test, and now it's time to face gym leader Katie. She leads with the Nimble, I switch into my Wooper, send out some toxic spike layers, and then slammed it through the ground while it unsuccessfully tried to damage me with struggle bug spamming. Next is her little spider versus my little Salt Boy, which I easily beat with spamming rock throw. Her last Pokemon is Teddiursa that terrestrializes into a bug type, but I countered that with my rock type terrestrialization, hit it with some boosted rock throws, winning us our first gym badge. Now it's time to head east to face our first Titan Pokemon. On the way, Spigarito evolved to Florgato, Palmy evolved into Palmo, and Tarantula evolved into a Speedos, which I thought would have been a lot cooler, you know, maybe like in an Ariados. I thought it was gonna look like that, so I swapped it with the random Nimble I've caught. And now it's time to face the Stony Cliff Titan Claw, which Palmo easily deals with some arm thrust, and then it runs away like a little scaredy cat. Apparently it was lunch break for him, but I didn't care and neither did Arvin, so we ganged up on him and the result remained the same. Palmo arm thrusted him to death, and we beat the Stony Cliff Titan and got a Titan badge for it. Next gym battle awaits, and after rounding up all 10 of the 5 FPS Sunflora, it is time to face the grass type gym leader himself, Brassius, who leads off with a Petalil against my Wooper. I layer up some spikes while Wooper tanks Mega Drains and dodges sleep powders, and now it's time to switch into Florgato, who bites the little petal to death. Next is Smallville, which are Palmo arm thrust to submission, and the final Pokemon is Sudowoodo against Wooper. He terrestrializes into grass while I counter poison terrestrialize. While Wooper got a little roughed up by some rock tombs, it was able to survive and launch some powerful poison tails, defeating the Sudowoodo and giving us our second gym badge. Next up is the Open Sky Titan. Bombardier comes out and is ready for a fight. Unfortunately, forgot to heal up Wooper and Bombardier plucks him to death. But next, our Salt Boy comes in and does some major smackdown damage and headbutts some until its wing attacks are a little too powerful for our Salt Boy. So I switched out to Tinkatink for some draining kisses where it responds by running away. Must be lunchtime again, so Arvin meets up with us, and now it's time for round 2, but accidentally put our poor little Nimble out there and it literally got shredded, but got a screech out before it died, greatly lowering Bombardier's defense. And I did the smartest play ever. I sent out Floragato and it instantly dies from a pluck. What was I thinking? But Arvin's little Salt Boy came in and finished the job, getting me another Titan badge and another tasty sandwich. Now it's time for my first Team Star base raid. And on the way, I was able to find a Terra Ice Wiglet and add it to my party. In preparation, I was able to evolve Palmo into Palma. Once we got near the base, we were informed that we have to essentially knock out 30 Pokemon Grunt before facing the big boss himself, Giacomo, the Dart type boss. He leads off with a Ponyard, which easily gets taken out with some arm thrust, and now it's time for the Second Starmobile. which at first I tried to slow down with some mud shots, not knowing that it was a dark type, and it was able to beat our poor little Wooper with a metal sound and a snarl combo. I bring in Palmot for some arm thrusts before switching into Tinkatink for some rock smashes to lower its defenses, then finally had Palmot come back out to finish up the job, giving us our first win against Team Star. And now it's time to take on the Electric Gym in Valencia. And on the way, Wooper evolved into Clocksire, but before we do that gym challenge, good old Nimona came up and said, I want to battle. I easily steamrolled through her team with Palmot taking out Rockruff, Clocksire negging her Palmo, and finally Florigato taking out Quaxwell. And after a quick collab with streamer gym leader Ayano, it's time for a gym battle. She starts off with a watch roll against Clocksire, letting me set up some spikes and poison jab it to death. Next is Bellybolt, who actually couldn't do anything to Clocksire. It absorbs the water gun and electric moves weren't going to do a thing, so we just mudshot it to death. And her next Pokemon, Luxio, followed suit. Her final Pokemon, Miss Magius, was a bit of trouble. It immediately terrestrialized into electric and beats Florigato with a hex. Also, I got confused in the process, which was just really bad because I have bad confusion luck. But luckily, Clocksire was able to step in with some poison jabs, and I totally did not forget to terrestrialize. And with that, we get our third gym badge, and Tinkatink evolves into Tinkatuff. Now it's time to take on Team Star's Fire Crew base, led by Mela. She starts off with a Drought Torkoal, but fortunately our little Salt Boy became into a Salt Stack who lays down the smackdown on Torkoal without a sweat. And now it's time to face the Shidar Starmobile. I try to win with another round of Smackdown, but Knuckle Stack wasn't able to take the heat of its signature blazing torque. I threw out Trio next, but its Water Pulse couldn't finish the job either, so I revived Knuckle Stack, terrestrialized it, and put out some boosted smackdowns on it, thus defeating Team Star's Fire Crew. And now it's time to face the lurking Steel Titan, Earthworm. I send out Clocksire to throw out some mud shots, but then I discover Earthworm has the ability Earth Eater, making all ground type moves useless. I send out Trio to try and get a confusion from Water Pulse, but it got knocked out by Iron Tail. So next is Tinkatuff to decrease its defense with some Rock Smashes, and then it falls to Iron Tail as well. Luckily, Palmot was able to come out and arm thrust it down until it started running away. Arvin and I interrupt its lunch break, and we get right back to another round of battling. Luckily, Arvin's Toad School served as a meat shield while I willed it down with some Rock Smashes from Tinkatuff, who ensures our victory and gets us another Titan badge. Now it's time to face the Cast Carafa Gym. But first, we have to return the gym leader's wallet because he ran out without it. But after that, it's time for a gym battle with gym leader Kofu. He starts out with a Velusa against my Clocksire, which made me instantly switch because it's a Psychic type, into Tinkatuff, who gets cut down by 2 Aqua Cutters. Next, I send out Florigato, who barely survives a pluck but was able to take it out with a Seed Bomb and a quick U-turn. Next is Trio, and I threw Clocksire against it, who was actually unbothered by all of Trio's attacks, giving me the opportunity to set up spikes, heal up Florigato, and poison jab it to death. His final Pokemon, Crabdominal, had to face my Palmot. Kofu terrestrializes and goes into water and hits real hard with a boosted Crab Hammer, but Palmot was able to live, so I terrestrialized back into an electric type and fry it with a spark, getting us the 4th gym badge. And now, time for the next Team Star crew, the Poison Crew, and their leader, Atticus. And this was a very tough and unforgiving fight. First, he leads with Skuntank against my Clocksire. Skuntank was fishing for some sucker punches, so I waited until it ran out of PP and then Mudshot to death. Next is a Reveroom, and despite Mudshot doing a lot of damage, Revavroom apparently had Bulldoze. I used Palmot's Revival Blessing to bring back Clogsire and Spark to do some damage before it also fell to Revavroom's Bulldoze. Now Wugtrio's up and defeats Revavroom with a Water Pulse. Next up is Knucklestack, who stall heals for Clogsire and dishes out some damage before going down. Thanks to the efforts of the other two, Clogsire can come in and beat Muck with a Mud Shot. The final Pokemon is Navi Starmobile. Clogsire used some Mud Shots to do some damage, but the Starmobile spam Spin Out, knocking out Clogsire. Next, Tinkatuff comes in with a Metal Claw, which reveals the Starmobile's ability, Toxic Debris, spreading out toxic spikes to the field. Then it goes down after getting spammed with both Spin Outs and Flame Charges. My last Pokemon was Florigato, which came in badly poisoned, so it definitely wasn't gonna beat Starmobile, so I used it to revive and heal up Clogsire, our last hope. After 2 Super Potions, 2 Hyper Potions, 4 Mud Shots, and taking 8 freaking Spin Outs, Clogsire came out victorious, and we have defeated Team Star's Poison Crew. Now to Medali City to take on the Medali Gym. I faced the normal gym leader, Larry. He leads up with Komala against Clogsire. Clogsire, as usual, throws out some spikes before it goes to sleep from Komala's yawn. Eventually, Clogsire woke up, landed some Mud Shots, but was knocked out by a Sucker Punch. I throw out Palmot, who actually is a different Palmot, because I found one that was Steel type, so I thought that would be better. And it comes in with some Arm Thrust, taking out Komala. Larry throws out Dunsparce, and I switch into Tinkatuff. I hit some Rock Smashes that don't do too much damage. Then Dunsparce paralyzes with Glare. Then follows it up with an unexpected Drill Run, which Tinkatuff lives fortunately, but forces me to switch out into Florigato, who easily handles another Drill Run until he throws out Hyper Drill, fainting Florigato. Thankfully, the poison from our spikes also take out Dunsparce, and now Larry's down to his last Pokemon, Staraptor. I switch in Tinkatuff, and Larry immediately terrestrializes into normal type and takes out Tinkatuff with a Facade. I throw out Wugtrio for a quick Aqua Jet before it too is defeated, and now it's Palmot's turn. I immediately terrestrialize into Steel, resisting Facade, and I end the battle with a Wild Charge. And now I have my 5th gym badge. Before I leave, I run into Nemona and Gita, the champion of the Paldea region. Nemona challenges me to a quick rival battle, leading with Lycanroc Day form against Clogsire, and despite spamming Bite and flinching me dang near every time, Clogsire was able to set up some spikes before it faints. Wugtrio comes in and quickly dispatches Lycanroc with a crit Aqua Jet. Next is my Florigato versus her Palmo, which I easily dispatch with a quick Seed Bomb. And then Gloomy comes out for a Play Rough for my Tinkatuff, beating it as well. Her final Pokemon is Quaquaval, which I throw Palmon against. She terrestrializes into water, and I try to end it quickly with a Wild Charge, but it was able to survive the hit and take out Palmot with the Aqua Step. Threw Tinkatuff out thinking it could survive the Aqua Step as well, but it also did not survive. Luckily, once again, Clogsire's spikes come into play, finishing off Quaquaval with some poison damage, and Florigato evolved into Mouscarda. Now I head to Montenevera City for their gym. On the way, I was able to evolve Tinkatuff into Tinkatun, and in this gym we do some double battles to hype up the crowd for the main event against Ghost Gym Leader Rhyme. She starts out with Mimikyu and a Bayonetti versus Clogsire and Tinkaton. Bayonetti starts off with the priority Shadow Sneak on Tinkatun, but Tinkaton retaliates with a Gigaton Hammer, destroying Mimikyu and bypassing Disguise because of Mold Breaker. Rhyme brings out her Houndstone and her Bayonetti goes for a Sucker Punch on Clocksire, while Tinkaton hits Houndstone with a Play Rough before it phases away. Since Bayonetti was gonna keep trying to Sucker Punch my poor Clocksire, I decided to use his turn to just heal up Tinkaton until I eventually knock out Bayonetti. And her last Pokemon is Toxtricity. She terrestrializes it into a ghost type, however before it could do literally anything, Tinkaton comes in with the Gigaton Hammer and knocks it instantly out. I terrestrialized Tinkaton to a fairy type to put the landing blow on Houndstone, but it missed, so Clocksire cleaned it up with the Poison Jab, giving me my 6th gym badge. Now it's on to the Sato Desert to face the Quaking Earth Titan, also known as the Great Tusk from the crater of Paldea. I face it with my Luxtrio, and after a quick triple dive, it runs away. Then we start round 2. I tried using the same strategy with Luxtrio and triple dive, but it didn't like that and breaks Luxtrio to death. Luckily, I have a Grass Cat, so I terrestrialize, send a boosted Flower Trick, beating the Great Tusk and giving us our next Titan badge. I glide on over to Alfornada City, where before we face the gym, we have to face Nemona once more, and I easily destroy her team with Luxtrio taking out her Lycanroc with triple dive, Clocksire taking out Pawmot with Mud Shot, Sliggoo getting played roughed by Tinkaton, and Quaquaval, her final Pokemon, getting beat by good old Clocksire Poison. Now I face the Psychic Gym leader Tulip. She starts with a Farigiraf against Clocksire, which was a huge mistake because it knocks him out before I could even set up any spike. I throw out Luxtrio for some damage, and then I find its wonderful ability, Armor Tail, which stops priority moves when I try to Sucker Punch it. Great. And now Luxtrio goes down from a crunch, but luckily Pawmot was able to finally defeat this thing with a quick revenge kill low sweep. After that, this battle became so much easier with Tinkaton coming in and playing whack-a-mole with the rest of her team, getting me my 7th gym badge. After that, I go over to Glaciado City for the final gym badge. On the way, I changed the team up some with the addition of Mosshole, Dondozo, and Armorogue. The final gym leader, Grusha, was pretty easy to deal with Armorogue taking out both Frostmoth and Beartic, and then Pawmot coming in to low sweep both Surtiton and a terrestrialized Ice Altaria. And just like that, I got my final gym badge, where Nemona and Gita both congratulate me and invite me to take on the Elite Four plus the championship battle. However, before going down that path, I decide to take on Team Star's Fairy Crew and their leader, Ortega. He starts with Azumarill, which Masquerada easily takes on with a Flower Trick. Next is a Wigglytuff that gets hammered, a Dogspun that gets Heavy Slam by Dondozo, and finally the Rushba Starmobile that sets up Misty Terrain, then uses Steel Roller to get rid of it. So in response, I throw out Tinkaton and land a Gigaton Hammer, taking out Team Star's Fairy Crew. I head down to Casseroya Lake to face the False Dragon Titan, which led me to an island filled with Tatsugiris all over the place, but I saw one that was way bigger than the other that got eaten by a random Dondozo who wanted to battle. I easily beat it with a boosted Flower Trick from Masquerada. Of course, it runs away and I catch up to it for round 2, which went exactly the same as round 1, and we finally defeat it. But Tatsugiri that was in there wants to battle too, so naturally I did the exact same thing, and with that out the way, Arvin makes the final Herba Mystica sandwich and his Pokemon fully recovers. With that, Professor Sada calls us and explains that all Koraidon's powers back except the power to battle, and tells Arvin to let us in the lighthouse where we originally met him. But before going down that path, I decide it's time to face Team Star's final crew, the fighting crew and their boss, Aerie. She starts off with a Toxicroak against my Armoro. I suspected that Toxicroak knew Sucker Punch, so I started Calm Mining so it can waste its time. Then I beat it with the Psyshock, and next is her Lucario, and thanks to those Calm Mines I was able to stand up to her Dark Pulse and melt it away with the Flamethrower. Her Passimian came out and it knew Rock Tomb, which I didn't expect, so that took out Armarouge, but I brung in Tinkaton, who was able to beat it with a Play Rough and a Knockoff. Next up is her Annihilate that lived our Play Rough and hits back with a close combat that we actually live, and I thought to myself, so Knockoff should beat it because the defense is lowered, right? Wrong. No, that didn't work, and Tinkaton goes down by a Rage Fist. Mousgrada comes in for a revenge kill Flower Trick, bringing Aerie down to her last Pokemon, the Calf Starmobile. I U-turn out to discover that it has stamina, which is really bad because I have no more special attackers. So I decide to bring out Palmont to paralyze it a little with Nuzzle, but for whatever reason, that does not work, and it starts shifting gears, raising both its attack, then it uses high horsepower on Palmont, knocking it out. Luckily, Dondozo has the ability Unaware, which ignores enemy stat changes. So after many tanked hits, healing items, and Aqua Tails that both missed and hit, Dondozo finally beat it, thus defeating the last Team Star crew. Then Cassiopeia informs me and Clive that they formed Team Star and to meet them at the schoolyard after dark. And now we are on the final stretch of our Paldea adventure. And if you've gotten this far into the video, leave a comment and let me know. And if you've been enjoying this adventure, definitely hit that like button too. I traveled back to the academy during night, and Clive was waiting for me at the entrance to reveal his true identity, Director Cavell, which wasn't surprising at all. And also, he reveals that he is also Cassiopeia, so now it's time for a battle. First, he sends out Oranguru against my Mouse Scarlet that I quickly dispatch with 2 Night Slashes. Then his Obama Snow comes out. I U-turn out into Armarouge, who quickly sets ablaze to that Christmas tree. Next is his Gyarados, and I use the same U-turn strategy, but this time I put in Palma, who tanks a Stone Edge and returns with the Furious Wild Charge to take him out. Then Polteagus gets instantly shredded by my Mascara's Night Slash. After that is his Amoonguss, which also catches on fire thanks to my Armarouge, and the final Pokemon is Skeletor. I respond with my Dondozo and we both terrestrialize. However, Skeletor's Shadow Balls were actually hitting a little too hard, fainting Dondozo, but luckily Palmont came in and used close combat to finish up the battle. Then the director reveals he's not actually Cassiopeia and was actually testing us. Thanks for wasting our time. I run out to the schoolyard to see that Cassiopeia is actually Penny, and that surprised no one. She requests a battle from me while Clive records it. Her first Pokemon is an Umbreon against my Mouscarda. I start off with some Play Roughs, then U-turn into Palmont to finish it off with a Low Sweep. Next is her Flareon that I send Dondozo out for and quickly finish it off with an Aqua Tail. Her third Pokemon is a Jolteon, which I put Palmont in, and even though it got a pretty hefty thunder on us, Palmont came back with a close combat and it went right down. Next is Vaporeon that Mascara's Flower Tricks, and then Leafeon, which Armarouge burns to a crisp. And our last Pokemon is a Sylveon, so I throw out Tinkaton, and despite her terrestrializing, it goes right down with a Gigaton Hammer, ending the battle. Penny reveals that Team Star was created because the bosses, including herself, were bullied. However, they got a little carried away with it, but despite all that, she considers her friends her greatest treasures. Clyde reveals his true identity as the director and surprises Penny with a touching reunion with all of her friends. And it ends with Penny giving me the Dragometer TM and offering her technological services at any time, officially ending the Starfall Street path. Now I head to Lighthouse on Poco Path where I first met Arvin to see what secrets lie within Professor Sada's lab. The professor requests that we deliver the Scarlet book to the deepest part of Area Zero in the Great Crater of Paldea. But before we do that, Arvin wants to test out our strength with the Pokemon battle. I start off with my mouse Scarlet versus his Greedent. After 2 flower tricks, it was pretty low, but then it paralyzes me with a body slam, making me switch out into Tinkaton, who immediately gets paralyzed by 1 body slam. Great! I use this opportunity to heal up Mouscarada, switch it in, and beat it with the 1 more flower trick. Next is Skull Villain, which I U-turn pivot out into Armor Roach, who absorbs its fire blast with Flash Fire. And even though a boosted flamethrower should beat it, it doesn't, and Armor Roach is knocked out with the crunch. So I send in Mouse Hold to finish it off with the Population Bomb. Next is Garganical against my Mouscarada, which was a pretty bad idea because it knew Body Press, instantly knocking out Mouscarada. I threw Palma out for a quick revenge kill with Low Sweep. After that, it's Toad School against Tinkaton. It almost takes out Tinkaton with an Earth Power, but Tinkaton held on and hit it back with a Skitter Smack, lowering its special attack. I used this opportunity to heal up Tinkaton and some team members, then terrestrialize into Fairy, landing a Play Rough and finishing off with a knockoff. Now his Cloister's out, and I use Palma to beat it with a quick Wild Charge and a Low Sweep. His last Pokemon is his best friend, Mobostiff. I decided to stay in with Palma, but unfortunately it had Intimidate, so instead of doing heavy damage, I chose to paralyze it with Nuzzle before he got knocked out with the Play Rough. Tinkaton comes in with a boosted Play Rough, ending our battle. And before Arvin runs off, he says we need someone who's good with tech and someone with the champion rank level skills. He leaves us with the task of finding those 2 allies and runs off, completing the Path of Legends. It's time to face the Elite Four and Champion Gita so we can become Champion rank. When I get to the Pokemon League facility, I do a quick little interview with a woman named Rika, and she asked some really interesting questions. One of them was like, who's the hardest gym leader? I was definitely like Larry because he was just honestly Norman 2.0, and I'm glad I don't have to fight him again. After passing the interview, it's time to face the first Elite Four member, which is none other than Rika herself. She starts off with Wish Cash, but unfortunately for her, I sent out my mouse Scarada, who easily flower tricks it to death. Next, Dondozo comes in to Aquatel her camera up out of battle. After that is her Donphan, and I terrestrialized mouse Scarada and land a boosted flower trick, but Donphan had Sturdy and hits back hard with Poison Jab, nearly knocking me out. So I U-turn out so I can avoid some poison damage and knock out Donphan. Her Dugtrio comes out and only Sandstorms for some reason. So Dondozo comes in with an Aquatail and beats it out. Her final Pokemon is a Clogsire, and I threw out Armorow, and then I realized it's going to terrestrialize as ground. So I chose to heal Mouscarada instead, just for it to terrestrialize and choose Protect for some reason. So I used Flamethrower and it did nothing, and I thought, okay, well, this is where Armorow goes down, and it goes for Toxic and misses. I predicted another Toxic coming out, so I throw out Mouscarada, and this time it actually wanted to attack with Earthquake. But it's too little too late as I flower trick it out, winning us our first Elite Four battle. The next member is a child named Poppy, and she leads off with the Copperjaw. It sets up some stealth rocks as I switch into Palmont to low sweep it out of the battle. Bronzong comes out next, and I use Mouscarada to Night Slash it out and finish it off with a flower trick. The rest of her team, Palmont literally wipes the floor with low sweeps and some wild charges. Her final Pokemon is Tinkaton, so we both terrestrialized into Steel, and Palmont was able to survive the boosted Gigaton Hammer and finish it off with a close combat. The next Elite Four member is Yep, Norman 2.0 is back and starts off with the Tropius against Palmont. Tropius sets up Sunny Day and I use that to switch into Armoro, who can use the sun to his advantage with a nice boosted flamethrower, burning Tropius to a crisp. Next is Star Raptor that I also flamethrower, but it barely survived and hits back hard with a Brave Bird, so I switch in Tinkaton to tank the next Brave Bird and it faints with recoil. Next is Altaria, which Tinkaton easily handles with 2 Play Rough. Then Palmont comes out against Oricorio and I successfully wild charge it out. Last Pokemon is a Flamingo against my Dondozo. He terrestrializes into flying and hits a hard close combat, then I return with a heavy slam. We both switch up our moves, him using Brave Bird and me using Aqua Tail. And now we're super low, and out of respect, I chose to stay in and heal a little while Larry goes for one more Brave Bird, knocking us both out. The final Elite Four member is Hassel. He leads with Noivern and I immediately switch out Masquerada for Tinkaton, who actually dodges both Super Fangs and knocks it out with a Play Rough and a Gigaton Hammer. He sends out Dragalge next and I send out my Armorogue. Surprisingly, Armorogue stood up to its Hydro Pump, which gave me the chance to knock it out with 2 Psyshock. Next is Haxorus and I bring out Tinkaton and immediately terrestrialize it into Fairy and land a boosted Play Rough that it lives and hits back hard with Iron Head. Luckily, Tinkaton survives and I finish it off with a knockoff. His Falapel comes out and I chose Armoroge to sacrifice itself so that I can heal up Tinkaton from that unexpected Iron Head. Then I put out Tinkaton and finish off Falapel with a Play Rough. His final Pokemon is a Baxcalibur and it has to face my Palmont. Then I realize it's going to terrestrialize into Dragon. So do a quick nuzzle and Palmont proceeds to get destroyed by Glaive Rush. But Tinkaton comes in and annihilates Baxcalibur with the Play Rough, defeating the final Elite Four member. Now it's time for the champion battle with Geeta. She starts with an Espatra that quickly goes down from my Meowscarada's Night Slashes. Her Go-Go goes down from a fiery flamethrower from Armorogue. Next, my Palmont faces her Avalugg that takes it out with a close combat, and then it's her King Gambit, which actually posed some trouble for me. I throw in Tinkaton, but I forgot one key detail, Supreme Overlord, which boosts King Gambit's attack stat for each fallen ally. With that boost, it did a lot of damage to Tinkaton and I had to sacrifice it in order to heal up Palmont. But Palmont comes back with a revenge kill close combat. Next is her Velusa that I send my Masquerada at and I terrestrialize it to give off a boosted flower trick that knocks Velusa out. Her final Pokemon Glamora had to face Dondozo and actually gets the advantage on him. So Masquerada comes in for some revenge and blasts his Glamora with a crit flower trick. And now Champion Geeta is defeated and I am champion ranked. But before we continue, it's time for a showdown between 2 champions. Nimona and I meet at the Mesagoza, and with the stage set, we start our final battle with her. She starts with Lycanrod that immediately goes down from a terrestrialized Masquerada. Next is Goodra that gets destroyed from 2 Play Roughs. Next is her Earthworm that survives Palmont's close combat, but in turn we live the earthquake it launches because Palmont refuses to be defeated by a little silly worm like that. Her Dunsparce comes out and instantly gets destroyed from Palmont's close combat. Then her own Palmont comes out and faces Armorogue, and after it uses Double Shock, bringing Armorogue super low, for whatever reason it chose to use Ice Punch, which did nothing, and I punished that with Psyshock. Her final Pokemon is Quaquaval, and I face it with my Meowscarada, and it's just like back when we first battled. And just like back then, I was able to win by spamming a grass type move. And with that, Nimona declares me the strongest and immediately wants to have another battle, thus completing the victory road path. But before I could get a moment's rest, Arvin calls and asks me to come to the Zero Gate, starting the final path in the game, the way home. When we get inside, Nimona and Penny are there waiting, and Professor Sada informs us that we have to unlock the main lab by visiting 4 different research stations below in the Great Crater Paldea. We use Koraidon to glide on down and visit each research station where we encounter different Pokemon such as the Glamora, Screamtail, and the Great Tusk. However, when we get to the last research station, something weird occurs. The station itself is trashed and Professor Sada acts really strange. When we're outside the main lab, Professor Sada warns us that there are dangerous Pokemon on the other side and to be prepared. As the lab door opens, another battle-formed Koraidon appears and threatens our Koraidon before entering the lab. But before we could enter ourselves, a lot of Paradox Pokemon come flooding out, forcing us to battle them in waves. Eventually, everyone else holds them off while I run inside. We go in and we find the professor, who's actually an AI, and that the original professor died in an incident in the 4th research lab while protecting our Koraidon. AI Sada informs us that all the strange Pokemon and Koraidon itself are from the distant past. The original professor created a time machine that brought them from the past to the future, and her dream was for ancient Pokemon to live alongside modern ones, but AI Sada determined that that would cause more hurt than harm as they mess up the ecosystem's balance. She requests that I shut down the time machine by placing the Scarlet book in it. However, AI Sada's programming will prevent us from doing that, and so we'll have to battle our way through it. And let me tell you, I was not prepared for this one, folks. The first Pokemon was Slytherin, who absolutely shredded Amuro, forcing me to throw out Mouse Hold and go for a Population Bomb that resulted in... Alright, let's go Population Bomb.
Are you serious right now, bro?
Why one? Why one time? Why did you hit for one fucking time? Yeah, so that happened and that sucks. So now I bring in Dondozo, who tries to get some damage out but ends up getting knocked out in the process. Finally, Tinkaton was able to come in with a Gigaton Hammer and finally beat her first Pokemon. Next is the Brute Bonnet, and I kept Tinkaton in and go for a Skitter Smack. I tried to get one more off, but we missed, and then it crits with Earth Power, knocking out Tinkaton. This is awful. Palmont comes in with close combat, defeating the Brute Bonnet, and next is her Screamtail. I leave that up to my terrestrialized Masquerada and land 2 quick flower tricks. Now Fluttermane's out, and I revive Tinkaton, and unfortunately Fluttermane burns my Masquerada to crisp with Mystical Fire. I use Palmont as a sacrifice to fully heal up Tinkaton, throw it out, and land a Gigaton Hammer, knocking out Fluttermane. Her next Paradox Pokemon is Sandy Shocks. I revive Masquerada, and luckily it can tank most of the hits that Sandy Shocks gives. So I use that time to heal just about most of my team out, and then finally take it down with 2 flower tricks. And it's a good thing I brought back most of my team, because her final Pokemon is the Roaring Moon. And this thing was an absolute monster. First, it had the booster energy item, activating its photosynthesis ability, greatly raising its attack. It shredded Palmont with an earthquake, so I used Masquerada's life to bring back Dondozo, who was an absolute lifesaver. First, it had the ability Unaware, so that attack boost meant nothing to it. And with a combination of some healing items, body slams that didn't paralyze, and a lot of sweat, blood, and tears, we were able to defeat the Roaring Moon. Everyone meets up with me, but before we could shut down the time machine, the Paradise Protection Protocol activates. This protocol reactivates AI Sada's battle mode and forces her to send out the battle-formed Koraidon from earlier. Not only that, but everyone's Pokeballs that don't have Professor Sada's ID are locked, so we can't even use our own Pokemon, so I used the only thing I could use, the Pokédoll. But that didn't work, so I threw out the Koraidon that's been with us our whole journey. After some motivation from us, it finally transforms into its battle form, and now it's Koraidon versus Koraidon for the final battle. They go back and forth with attacks, but the opponent's Koraidon was able to hit hard with a Giga Impact, leaving me at 1 HP. I was luckily able to heal up from that and use my Terra Orb to terrestrialize Koraidon into a Dragon type, defeating the opponent's Koraidon with a Terra Blast. That shuts down the Paradise Protection Protocol, and to prevent the time machine from rebooting in the future, AI Asada sends herself and the Scarlet book to the past to have her own adventure. She bids us adieu and ensures Arvin that his mother always loved him, and we head out. But as we're walking home, everyone's pretty down, so Nimona decides that we should take the long way home and have our own adventure, which cheers everyone out as we go to a new adventure and completing the way home path and ending Pokemon Scarlet. And that was the best path to take in Pokemon Scarlet. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Thank you for helping me hit 1,000 subs, man. I had a lot of fun making the video. Don't forget, if you enjoyed it, give it a like, share it out, and sub to the channel. It really helps a lot. I would really appreciate it. And let's also hit 9 likes for Generation 9. This is Star Gaming, and I'll see you next time.